Hi class, I'm here to give you some of my concluding views of Frankenstein. I think I've already stated I absolutely love this novel. I think it is a remarkable piece of fiction. I'm enthralled by the story behind Frankenstein. I'm enthralled by its author. However, despite the fact that I absolutely love this novel, I am very, very critical of the character of Victor Frankenstein. And we must ask ourselves, does he learn anything throughout the novel? At the beginning, we learn that he wants to tell his entire tale to Robert Walton because he hopes Robert Walton will learn from his story. However, on the screen, you'll see a letter that Walton sends to his sister on September 5th. This is from the end of the novel, after Frankenstein has told his entire tale. I think this letter reveals that Frankenstein did not learn anything. Why do I say that? Let's take a look at the text. We are still, and if you can see my cursor, I'm reading by the cursor. We are still surrounded by mountains of ice, still in imminent danger of being crushed in their conflict. And this is Walton. The cold is excessive, and many of my unfortunate comrades have already found a grave amidst this scene of desolation. So his crew is dying. Frankenstein has daily declined in health. A feverish fire still glimmers in his eyes, but he is exhausted, and when suddenly roused to any exertion, he speedily sinks again into apparent lifelessness. Okay, so Frankenstein himself isn't doing that well. I mentioned in my last letter the fears I entertained of a mutiny. So Walton fears that his crew will just up and leave him. This morning, as I sat watching the wan countenance of my friend, he's referring to Frankenstein, his eyes half closed and his limbs hanging listlessly, I was roused by half a dozen sailors who desired admission into the cabin. They entered, and their leader addressed me. He told me that he and his companions had been chosen by the other sailors to come in deputation to me, to make me a demand, which in justice I could not refuse. We were immured in ice and should probably never escape, but they feared that if, as was possible, the ice should dissipate, and a free passage could be opened, I should be rash enough to continue with my voyage and lead them into fresh dangers after they might happily have surmounted this. They desired, therefore, that I should engage with a solemn promise that if the vessel should be freed, I would instantly direct my course southward. Okay, so the crew wants to go home if the ice breaks. Okay, so then we have, this speech troubled me. I had not despaired, nor had I yet conceived the idea of returning if set free. Walton doesn't want to go back. Yet could I, in justice or even possibility, refuse this demand? I hesitated before I answered, when Frankenstein, who had been silent and indeed appeared heartily to have force enough to attend, now roused himself. His eyes sparked and his cheeks flushed with momentary vigor. Turning towards the men, he said, so now Frankenstein is addressing this group of men who want to go home and maintain their lives rather than sailing into further danger. And here's Frankenstein. This is what he says. What do you mean? What do you demand of your captain? Are you then so easily turned from your design? Did you not call this glorious expedition? And wherefore was it glorious? Not because the way was smooth and placid as a southern sea, but because it was full of danger and terror. Because at every new incident your fortitude was to be called forth, and your courage exhibited. Because danger and death surrounded, and these dangers you were to brave and overcome. For this was it glorious, for this was it an honorable undertaking. You were hereafter to be hailed as the benefactors of your species. Where have we heard that phrase before? Your name adored as belonging to brave men who encountered death for honor and the benefit of mankind. And now behold, with the first imagination of danger, or if you will, the first mighty and terrific trial of your courage, you shrink away and are content to be handed down as men who had not strength enough to endure cold and peril. And so, poor souls, they were chilly and returned to their warm firesides. Why, that requires not this preparation. Ye not have come thus far, and dragged your captain to the shame of defeat, merely to prove yourselves cowards. Oh, be men, be more than men, be steady to your purpose, and firm as a rock. This ice is not made of such stuff as your hearts might be. It is mutable, cannot withstand you. If you say that it shall not, Do not return to your families with the stigma of disgrace marked on your brows. Return as heroes who have fought and conquered, and who know not what it is to turn their backs on the foe. So here Frankenstein is once again railing about the benefactor of mankind, gloriousness, having glory. These are all things that he wanted, and claims to have learned from this. However, we see that he hasn't learned anything. And the way that he puts it, he's quite bitchy when he says, oh, you were chilly, so you were a little cold, and now you want to go back. So he's making fun of the fact that they actually want to do the logical thing to save their lives. And also, they're not alone. They have families who also want them to return. So Frankenstein is just saying the exact same stuff that he said about himself. In the beginning, when he wanted to be the benefactor of mankind, when he wanted to be known for his glorious expedition into discovering the secret to human life. But we see, at least in my opinion, that he really hasn't learned anything. He wants Walton to go forward, even though it's most likely going to be certain death for Walton and his crew. Frankenstein knows that he's dying. He doesn't really care about his own safety at this point. He knows that he's not going to return. But he also wants Walton to have this glory, and now he is on the ship with Walton going into further glory, so he doesn't want them to turn back. Anyways, I think this is quite telling of the character and completely in keeping with the character, and I don't see from this that he has really learned any lesson that he hopes to tell Walton, which begs the question, why is he even going through his whole tale if he didn't learn anything and really doesn't want to impress upon Walton anything, because he tells him to go forward when his whole tale was meant to, curb these desires, for glory over, maintaining life and keeping your family safe and, keeping your family happy. Anyways, my 2 cents on the character of Frankenstein. I think this is a remarkable portion of the text. Anyways, once again, if you would like to discuss the book, if you have different feelings than I do about this passage, please feel free to get in touch. All right, I hope you enjoyed the novel, even if you didn't love all the characters. And clearly, I think Victor Frankenstein is actually the villain of this story. And I know a lot of you do too. All right, bye for now.